Harry Litman, the Trump regime wants to basically throw away the Constitution. I'm not saying that figuratively. They literally want to suspend habeas corpus. I want to talk about what that means, but I think for the Trump regime, they're seeing the writing on the wall, that despite them saying, oh, it's these leftist judges who want due process and it's just them. But no, it's actually Trump appointed judges, Reagan appointed judges, George W. Bush appointed judges, Clinton appointed judges, Obama and Biden appointed judges all together, whether you're in the Southern District of Texas, District Court in Louisiana, federal courts in Maryland, federal courts in New York, federal courts in Colorado. Every single judge, all of them, at every level, up to the circuit courts, and the Supreme Court, which said facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. But even since that opinion, we're seeing the same thing. You have to provide due process. Even if the Alien Enemies Act was properly invoked, you have to provide due process, Donald. And number two, court saying the Alien Enemies Act was not properly invoked in the first place. You're violating the law. So what the Trump regime, I think, sees is that they're slowly creeping towards the massive losses, where all of these cases start going to the Supreme Court again, and that massive rebuke is coming, I think, which already has happened, but we're going to see it in a very big way. So how is the Trump regime preparing for it right now? Because they've been lying to all of their MAGA mushbrain followers, and they've claimed, actually, the Supreme Court said 9-0, Donald Trump won the Abrego Garcia, that he doesn't have to facilitate the return. And it literally says facilitate the return. So the Stephen Millers, Trump's top advisor, the Pam Bondis, what are they getting ready to do? What's their next move? Well, their next move is to basically say, not only are we at war, therefore we invoke the Alien Enemies Act, but basically we're going to suspend habeas corpus. We're basically in a state of emergency. In essence, we're at war. You know, he's a wartime president. He's like Zelensky in the United, that's what he wants to almost frame it as. Like there's a war happening. And I'm going to, issue war powers as though we were invaded by, like Russia. And Trump's claiming the invasion is Venezuela, that we're under invasion by Venezuela. And look, we've looked at the recent intelligence community reports from Donald Trump's own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's team, and they said, no, there is no war, a predatory incursion coming from Venezuela. It's bullshit. It's not happening. So let me just so everyone knows, okay, Ben, don't be hyperbolic. Like, don't have headlines that you don't back it up with what the title is. Sure, okay, Exhibit A, this is what Stephen Miller said on Friday from the White House. He said, suspend habeas corpus. Play this clip.
That happens, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the
So 2 points there. You have to pick up both points to everybody, just so you heard it. One, the kind of statement of invasion, suspend habeas corpus. Then we're looking into it if the courts don't do the right thing. So it's married with the threat. If, and the threat is an intentional one, mobster style, gangster style, to the Supreme Court, which is do the right. He's extorting the Supreme Court. Like, I want you all to see what he just did there, because he's saying, if you don't rule the way I want you to rule, we're going to have war here, military on the streets, tanks in the streets, and we're not going to listen to you. So then you're going to have no power. So give us what we want, Justice Roberts, right now, or get ready for the tanks on the street. That's what he meant right there. That's what he intended the message to be. Am I being hyperbolic, Harry?
No, I think you're being a little understated, if I can say it. Where to start? Okay, first, Stephen Miller. He is, as you say, the exact guy who told Trump that, in fact, the Supreme Court had ruled for Trump 9-0 when they'd ruled against him 9-0. The idea that he has his Trump's ear in deciding the legal positions of the United States in these kinds of matters where people's constitutional rights are on the line is simply terrifying. Now let's talk about how unbelievably serious it is, right? This is in the Constitution. You cannot suspend except for in many instances, and I'll get to those in a minute, but we don't have them. We don't have any of them here. It would be a constitutional joke if it weren't a constitutional tragedy. But we're talking Magna Carta, right? We're talking the ultimate bulwark against executive abuse, being this so serious that the framers have this special clause in Article 1, the privilege of writ shall. He said, oh, you know that you can suspend it. Here's what the clause says. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless, and that's where he's what he's trying to run with, when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Now, let me make clear, I can double back. I'll probably write about this some, but these are not terms for the executive to interpret. It's so clear from the case law, including you're going to be hearing a fair bit about Lincoln. I can get to that in a moment, but is there a rebellion? The courts will determine. Is there an invasion? The courts will determine. Does the public safety require it? The courts will determine. And there are many instances starting in the Civil War, but let's go much more recent after 9/11, when the executive actually tried to suspend habeas corpus with a congressional statute. Because the other point to make is, this is in Article 1. It's Congress that can suspend the writ of habeas corpus, not the executive. I know that Lincoln did it, but it was ratified by Congress and it was ruled in any event to have been unconstitutional. We'll leave that to the side for now. So it has to be Congress. It has to be all these things. But even so, when they tried to do it in 2004, you had the Supreme Court stand up and say, you may not do this, even though you've tried to do it, Congress, and you've made all these findings, because there must be some equivalent channel for rights to be pressed by these 9/11 accused terrorists. You don't have them here, and it would absolutely be the same. Even if they could suspend it, and there's 8 reasons why they couldn't, you would need, what I think would happen naturally is they would revisit their ruling that said it needs to be habeas corpus, and they would instead re-elevate the very provisions of law that Boasberg relied on, and then the court said you should have relied on habeas corpus. So there's 18 reasons why it doesn't fly. But again, I mean, Stephen Miller, I think, is a dangerous legal lunatic on when he stands for it, and it's astonishing and kind of heart-stopping that he is the guy setting legal policy for, they didn't check with the SG, they didn't check with OLC. Stephen Miller steps up and we're considering suspension. That's the same as saying we're considering shredding, putting it through Elon Musk's meat cutter, the Constitution of the United States, as you say. It's just, a complete travesty.
Now, Harry, Stephen Miller's not a lawyer. Not a licensed lawyer.
I've noticed that.
Let's just start with that premise of people like Stephen Miller, or, I guess at least Jim Jordan, a MAGA Republican who runs the Judiciary Committee. I guess at least he went to a law school, not a licensed lawyer, and didn't pass the bar exam, but he leads the Judiciary Committee. Right. Like, at a fundamental level, also, like when you have these non-lawyers out there doing things that really harm the law. You think about Donald Trump's Surgeon General, Casey Means, and you hear this in the medical profession. This is a non-licensed doctor who didn't get through her residency. And by the way, I know people who didn't pass the bar and never took it again, and they're fine people. They're smart. Like, I'm not, no offense. I know people who didn't like their residency and they go on to do great things and have great family. You just don't set the policy agenda for the profession if you're not a licensed person and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But Harry, I see that. Like, he said it. I just want our audience to, again, I want to play the clip one more time because I want them to recognize in a very short period of time that this line is pre-planned, premeditated, and it is a direct message to the court. It's a threat. And I want you to think about the way a mobster or mafioso person would go, okay, you're going to do what I want you to do. And if you don't do what I want you to do, things are going to go down. And you know what that means. That's what that was to the Supreme Court. You want tanks in the street? Do not rule that Donald Trump violated your prior Abrego Garcia order. Here, watch this one more time.
That happens, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the
He's like Jeffrey Dahmer, that guy. I mean, when you look at him, right? I mean, he's just the every aspect of it is sociopath. The Constitution is clear. No, it's you're about to it's clear that it's not what you say it is.
Yeah.
The privilege of as though we're like lucky and entitled to have it's a fundamental right that we have in the Constitution. This privilege that you're lucky to even have it can be suspended in a time. He misstates the entire line, and we'll just have to see what the Supreme Court does. Harry, final thoughts.
Yeah, look, your point is so well taken, man. It really is like nice little constitution you have. Hate to see anything happen to it. And the notion that whether or not, we know why under the Constitution, we know why in history, sometimes you can think about suspending the writ of habeas corpus. It can't be that you would suspend it because the courts would rule people are entitled to the rights that it secures, right? That's exactly what he's saying, that the main factor here is the court wants to insist on review, insist on habeas corpus. That's why, sorry, court, you blew it. We're going to have to suspend it now. Oh, poor little Constitution. It is really sinister and mob-like. I think you really put your finger on it.
Harry Litman's Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast is great. You all just have to search it. You have a podcast, go search Talking Feds. YouTube, search Talking Feds. Substack, search Talking Feds. It's where I get my legal news from. You all should too. Harry Litman, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.